To me, this war has been going on for a long time, and it seemed like just overnight, it just like happened. Like, how did that happen? So, or what appeared to be so quick? There was no help from Iran, from Russia. Do you understand like how that happened so quickly with Assad having to flee?
So I was a few weeks before the regime change in
Mm.
Syria, and I think the situation was very, very dire, and the people were very in a very poor conditions because. So we criticized Obama for what he did
Mm.
to Syria, but I want to criticize also Trump. When he came, he was saying the right things. He said,
Mm.
"Why are we supporting these rebels? They want to fly planes in our buildings, and those are
Mm.
terrorists, this and that." But when he came and he wanted to withdraw from Syria, the intelligence community went against him, the CIA went against him, the Pentagon and the neocons and Israel and everyone went against him. They didn't want him to withdraw from Syria. In the contrary, they orchestrated chemical attacks in Syria 2 times in
Mm.
2017 and 2018 so that he stays in Syria. And
These
so
were
he,
staged, right? Those chemical attacks were like staged, or
Mhm.
most likely were staged. It appeared from what I read.
In 2017, the chemical attack happened in a city called Khan al Asal and Khan Sheikhun, sorry. And in this place, the researchers of MIT they have found out that this missile came from a rebel side and not from a government side. And the
Yeah.
same thing in 2018. In 2018, it was highly likely that a chemical attack never happened. It was not the case at all. But despite that, Trump bombed Syria twice. He
Mm.
called Assad animal. He said he will assassinate Assad. And then the most important part, you know, there are some things for Trump, it's a theater.
Mm.
He wants to show like he has muscles. He's
Yeah.
bombing, doing this and that, talk, big talk. We know his style. But there
Yeah.
is, he really harmed Syria by imposing draconian sanctions on the Syrian economy, which means,
Yeah. I
Jake,
was unaware of
imagine,
that.
so he imposed sanctions called the Syrian People Protection Act. So it's like the opposite of what they did, basically. They imposed draconian sanctions on the Syrian central bank. They
Mm.
imposed sanctions on the transactions. They imposed sanctions on the energy sector, on the pharmaceutical sector, on everything
Wow.
that can people services, right? So let's suppose, for God forbidden, one of my family members had cancer, and I want to import the medicine. I can't make transactions. I can't buy the medication. So people buy it from Dubai, put it in a refrigerator, bring it to Beirut, and then you put it in a taxi and you bring it to Syria because you can't buy.
Mm.
So that's how far Trump went in sanctioning Syria, to the extent that 95% of the Syrian people became under the poverty line under Trump. And then he occupied the oil
Mm.
fields of Syria and the wheat fields of Syria. So we basically occupied our energy and food
America did. We
baskets.
occupied the oil fields.
Yes,
What,
the
what were we
U.S.
doing with the oil? Probably selling it to Israel for cheap, or because I don't
They,
think the
they
U.S. got
were
any of it.
they were selling it to finance a proxy force that they have created there called the Syrian Democratic Forces.
So we took the oil field and we were financing the war with this. Wow, that's crazy. I
Yeah,
did not know
and
that.
we needed this oil because everything in Syria works on fuel and gas, like from cars, from our cooking, and from
Mm.
our electricity. So imagine we had 2 hours of electricity per day because we don't have our oil, and
Oh
our
shoot.
cars. You have a car, but you don't have a
Yeah.
fuel. How can you drive your car?
Damn. So people couldn't even get to work and functions, and
And how
so
would
he
the
crippled the
factories
economy.
work? How would the
Yeah.
factories work? Nothing. Nothing
And
works without fuel.
and Trump's the one that put these sanctions on.
Yeah, so he helped these so-called rebels, these terrorists, by impoverishing the Syrian people who live under the government regions, who were the majority, 15 million. And then the organizations like USAID, NED, and other organizations, they have funneled billions of US taxpayer money into the regions occupied by these Al-Qaeda forces, saying this is humanitarian aid, we're building tents, we're giving blankets, we're giving food. Yes, they were partly doing that, but some of this money was also going to the pockets of these terrorists. And this has been proven now because of the Doge, and they're coming after USAID and everything, that there was a non-governmental organization in Idlib where Jolani used to occupy. The guy received the money from USAID, and he says he's a humanitarian organization building tents and giving blankets to kids and children. He was buying, but some of this money he was sending to the commanders and officers of Al-Qaeda. Around $9 million went to the pockets of these Al-Qaeda terrorist leaders. So on one hand, they destroyed the economy of Assad, let's say. On the other hand, they propped up the economy of Jolani. So the people who lived under these terrorist regions, they probably had a better life than the people lived the majority under Assad. So the people were very poor. They were demoralized. They didn't have the will to fight any longer. Like, why would I fight 14 years if the situation is going to be this dire, right? So when the attack happened on Aleppo, the army didn't fight. The Syrian army rejected to fight, in addition to other things like probably they have bought some of the officers in the army and bribed them.
Yeah, because it's crazy to see them not fight back. Yeah, I bet there was some bribery. Like you said, you made excellent points, but there had to be some bribery and stuff as well, or something. Maybe they're promised some positions of power, or what do you think is happening to the army now? Are they being persecuted, or are they being treated well since they didn't fight back?
Yeah, so look, it doesn't make any sense for the regime to fall in 14 days. This is not. This
No,
is
it's
not
happened out
something.
of nowhere. This has been going on for years.
Like
I was shocked to
14
see it happen.
years. 14 years they couldn't oust Assad. Like in 14 days, it's impossible. And I covered these attacks from Jolani army against the Syrian army, and yes, they were caught off guard in Aleppo, and they had to do strategic deployment in a different place. And in this place, they had over 40 to 50,000 soldiers. It's impossible for them to lose the battle in a matter of day or two. But they all laid down their arms. There was someone giving instructions and orders to the military to lay down arms. So, and you're
Someone
a soldier.
someone high up in the military, most likely, it seems like.
Yes. So if you're in the military in Syria, you follow the orders. You don't.
That's how U.S. military is. So yeah, they must have
Yeah.
corrupted someone high up and had them lay down orders. I mean, I'm just speculating, but that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it sounded like it was a coup and wasn't like a regime change operation. Like it wasn't like an insurgency. There was no fighting.
No, that's what was so baffling to me. That it just seems like it
Yeah.
happened so quick. And then Assad fled to Russia? Or we
That's
don't
the
really
most
know.
absurd part. No, he's in Russia with his family. And this is the point where everything also changed for me, because people used to call me an Assadist. I was never a loyalist, you know. I'm not loyal to people.
Yeah, you just
I'm
said
loyal
you're
to
better than
cause.
better than the other option.
Yeah, I'm a person of principle. I'm like, if Assad is doing something right, I support that something right. But when he's doing something wrong, I reject that, right?
Yep.
Like in the economy or in the authoritarianism, I'm not with him. But when it comes to foreign policy and fighting against these insurgents, it's not like I have the privilege to choose the actors. It's like it's either Assad or Al Qaeda, and I'm not going to be with Al Qaeda. You know, it's logic. But when he left the country the way he left, I don't want to say I was disappointed, but I said he betrayed the country, because you cannot leave everything behind you like this. Before securing at least the fate and the destiny of the people, you need to secure your army, because this army has been built for 50 years from our taxpayer money. And Israel came when there is no president and destroys the entire country, and basically Syria becomes castrated, and now we don't have any sovereignty, any deterrence weapon against anyone, and so every army can come and occupy our country. No, you needed to secure the destiny of the people, of the army. So then you leave. It's fine. If you don't want to continue this, leave. But you cannot leave us in the forefront against these Al-Qaeda hordes who are now committing all this genocide against the religious minorities, because they saw you an Alawite, you're an Alawite, Bashar al-Assad, so we will kill your people. Now, all these people who were murdered in the coastal cities of Syria, whose fault is this?
Yeah, I mean, he should have sent his wife and kids out, but then he should have stayed and either died or at least tried fighting. You know, if you're a leader, you got to go down with your people. You can't abandon your people. I know that's a tough reality, because he's probably going to torture them if they catch him, but he could always shoot himself last minute if it's going down. I think if you're a leader of a country, you have to stay and fight with your people and lead and at least try to lead, even if you're going to lose. You can't just abandon your people.